Okay, so we were discussing about this idea of bourgeois gentleman, how Pip has risen to this state of bourgeois gentleman, but on the other hand, he is in this perpetual in-betweenness. He's trapped in this in-betweenness. He's unable to escape, right? Yeah. So regarding his behavior to Joe and also Bitty, and also you can see that he literally expresses his dissatisfaction here. It is better if I had never seen Miss Havisham's face, so introduced to the upper class, in other words, and had risen to manhood. So, what is so specific about this idea of manhood, Reverend? Why is he not using the word gentleman? So, what is the difference between a man and a gentleman? I'm not asking you in a kind of a metaphorical sense, right? So, they said that a man, when it comes to this idea of man and gentleman, so not every man would be a gentleman. So, I'm not asking you in that sense. I'm asking you this question related to the socio-cultural aspect of the period. Yeah. Class. And also you can see that he says it is good if I stayed as a man, yeah, not a gentleman. That idea, this is not in any way regarding the characteristics, because you can see, and again something very ironic that you can see here is, so we usually think, at even in modern times we would think that a gentleman has good characteristics than a normal man. But what you can see here, when Pip was just an ordinary person, just a man, I would say, I'm emphasizing on this word man, right? He was better than that, right? He was better than, during the time, he was a gentleman. Maybe you can highlight that word, manhood. That is very important. Okay, so here you can see, yeah, this idea of manhood and being a gentleman. So he thinks if I did become a gentleman, I would have been more contented. And also partners with Joe in the honest old forge. So forge is a place that he avoids visiting now, Reverence, but he is calling it honest old forge, right? So what is the idea there? He realizes now that forge is where the honesty resides, not London, right? Even though he dreamt about visiting London, now he realizes, right? Okay. And then maybe a time of an evening when I sat alone looking at the fire. So alone in London, right? I thought after all there was no fire like the forge fire and the kitchen fire at home, right? So you can see how ironic is it. So you may write there's irony, a whole lot of irony there. So his realization, awareness, as I said earlier, disillusionment of London, and also more than everything, the myth of great expectations, right? Yeah, the myth of being a gentleman, rising to this idea of bourgeois gentleman, that idea. Okay, so is this next paragraph there, reference? Yet Estella was so inseparable? Yeah, so I will just read out because otherwise we won't have enough time to complete the book, right? So I will just go on reading. Yet Estella was so inseparable from all my restlessness and disquiet of mind. So what is the idea here? That I really fell into confusion as to the limits of my own part in its production. So there's this inescapability reference, right? He's unable to escape from Estella. It's not like that he wants to pursue Estella. It's almost like, part of his existence. He's unable to kind of, avoid Estella's memory. Not Estella, but Estella's memory. This idea of Estella is haunting him. Maybe because he was introduced to Estella and also he was manipulated to love her from his childhood. Maybe that can be the reason. So can be very psychological. Just like Pride and Prejudice, Great Expectations is a very psychological novel, much more than that, because you have Miss Havisham as well, right? Yeah. And then I really fell into confusion as to the limits of my own part in its production. That is to say, supposing I had no expectations and yet had Estella to think of, I could not make out to my satisfaction that I should have done much better. What is the idea here, reverence? Supposing I had no expectations. So you can see how expectations is being repeated, the word expectations, right? Yeah. And yet had Estella to think of. That means expectations of becoming a gentleman. If he did not have such expectations but had Estella to think of, I could not make out to my satisfaction that I should have done much better. What is the idea there? So you can see Dickensian language can be kind of confusing, right? So he is using kind of double negatives. They are right. I could not, I had no expectations, like that. So that means if he did not have expectations of becoming a gentleman, but only had Estella to think of, right? But still that he couldn't have done much better. That means Estella would not make it easier for him, right? Having this thought of Estella. So not becoming in the forge, right? But still he would not be happy because Estella would belong to the upper class. That is the idea there, right? Is that clear? Yeah, okay. Because that he is using all these had no expectations, I could not make out, and also if you are asked to write about Dickensian language, you may use these expressions, because that Dickens himself was coming from lower class. His father was literally in prison, right? So you can see that even his own life has this impact on Great Expectations. Yeah, so he's kind of deriving experiences from his own life as well. Now, concerning the influence of my position on others, I was in no such difficulty, and so I perceived, though dimly enough perhaps, that it was not beneficial to anybody. Is that part there, reference?
Yes.
Yeah. And above all, that it was not beneficial to Herbert. So here you can see, now he is kind of being guilty because he is influencing Herbert in a negative manner. He's not much concerned about these other people who are already kind of belonging to the upper class. I was in no such difficulty, though dimly enough perhaps, that it was not beneficial to anybody. So that also he realizes that he is not beneficial to anybody, not even to Joe and Biddy, right? Who are kind of, in this lower class and maybe also going through financial difficulties. You can say so, but he is not being beneficial to anybody, even financially. He's not being a help. Above all, it was not beneficial to Herbert, and not only to those who are in the lower class, but also the person who is residing with him, Herbert. So not being beneficial means that he does not have to be financially helpful to Herbert. But let's see what is happening with Herbert now. So he is feeling guilty about Herbert. My lavish habits led his easy nature into expenses that he could not afford, right? Corrupted the simplicity of his life and disturbed his peace with anxieties and regrets. So you can see how the tables have turned. Herbert is someone who belongs to the upper class already, or let's say, upper middle class. But what has happened? He is a person with an easy nature, right? He is not very lavish. I told you, he has moderate expectations, not great expectations. But now Pip has developed all these lavish habits. Lavish means luxurious? Yeah. So all these habits related to luxury or luxurious habits led his easy nature into expenses that he could not afford. Even Herbert could not afford, right? So Herbert was a simple, humble man. But despite coming from, all these classy roots, but what has happened? Pip is the one who leads him to a lavish lifestyle. So that's very ironic, right? Again, you can see irony. Pip, who's coming from the lower class, is leading this upper middle class man to expenses that he cannot even afford. Afford, right? That you cannot bear. Corrupted the simplicity of his life. Again, you can see that he is harming Herbert, literally. So that's why he is saying that, I was not beneficial even to Herbert, despite Joe and Biddy, right? You can just, disregard Joe and Biddy, not even beneficial. So that means he was not even a good roommate, right? Yeah. And also disturb his peace with anxieties and regrets. So Pip has imposed his lavish ideas on Herbert. I was not at all remorseful for having unwittingly set those other branches of the Pocket family to the poor arts they practiced, because such littleness were their natural bent and would have been evoked by anybody else if I had left them slumbering. So what has happened? Not only Herbert's own life, but also Herbert's family. That means the Pocket family. So they already had all these poor arts. Poor arts means like vanity, reverence, right? Yeah. Superficial. The superficial behavior. They already had the superficial behavior, but who has evoked it? Pip. Pip, who is coming from the lower class. So very ironical there. So this idea of bourgeois gentleman. So, and again you can see that Dickens is being, I would say, in a way self-critical as well, because he is also coming from this lower class, right? Yeah. He has worked as a clerk and all this. When we are discussing this note, we will discuss further about that, but I do not want to give you the note today because I feel that it would affect your assessment in a way, right? I want to take out your own ideas, because literature is about, expressing your own ideas. You are waiting for the note today. No. Okay, so anyway, I have already given you the question, right? So it is specifically about just one theme, the major theme, which is class, right? Okay. So again, here you can refer to this idea of class here as well. So this, the Pocket family who belong to the upper class, they already have these lavish habits, these vain habits, right? But these vain habits are evoked, or they are kind of exaggerated by Pip's existence, right? Yeah, by Pip's association there. And he is not guilty about that, that kind of evoking their lavish habits. But when it comes to Pocket, Herbert Pocket specifically, he is sad about that, right? Unwittingly, you can say, having unwittingly set those other branches of the Pocket family, that means the other members of the Pocket family. So he is not at all remorseful about it. He is not kind of feeling guilty about it. But Herbert's was a very different case, because Herbert is this good person, and it often caused me a twinge. Twinge means, reference, it's like a sudden pain, sudden sharp pain. Yeah. So you have to mention both sudden and sharp. So there are such instances, right? When you think about kind of an incident, maybe you feel a sudden sharp pain. Yeah, something like that. Maybe also sudden. Yeah. And if there are anything that you don't understand, let me know, reference, right? Yeah. I'm kind of, not going with my usual speed today because we need to complete the book, right? If you have anything, difficult or anything that you don't understand, anything not clear to you, you may let me know. Something happened, Reverend? Oh, that's fine. So I wish that you would be able to sign with a red pen one day, right? Okay. Okay, right. So I don't know whether I told you this story. When my father was a student, a university student, he has signed as a lecturer on his admission. It was been mistaken and he was so worried, and then he has gone to his head of the department and he has told him that I have mistakenly done this, I'm so sorry. And usually a senior lecturer would have been pissed off about that, right? Usually would have been very angry about it, and he has wished in turn that I wish you would be able to sign as the head of the department one day, right? So I remembered that. That's why I wish to, right? Okay. So where were we? About setting this pocket family enhance their lavish habits. But Herbert's is a very different case, and it often caused me a twinge to think that I had done him evil service, right? So he is equating himself to an evil force, right? Equating himself. So Pippi is doing this in crowding his sparely furnished chambers. Sparely furnished chambers means, Reverend? Chamber, you know, right? His room. Yeah. So sparely furnished means? Yeah, it's kind of like not very lavishly furnished. Here the idea would be, yes, not very lavishly furnished. That means he's referring to Herbert's room. With incongruous. Incongruous means out of place materials, reference. Not really belonging to the place, out of place. And again, upholstery, same idea, right? So literally the idea is the stuff that he does not need. Maybe you have seen such houses filled with this stuff which are not necessary, right? Yeah. So to kind of give an aesthetic presence or a sophisticated presence, some people kind of clutter the spaces.
Because most of the people life depend on showcasing.
Exactly, Reverend. Yeah, that is the reason. So here you can see when it comes to Pip, he's a classic case of showing off, right? They just want to show off. That is the idea. So here you can see, so incongruous upholstery work, so stuff that he does not need, out of place. So those are cluttered as kind of symbols of, I would say, aristocracy. Yeah, so that is what is happening here. Placing the canary-breasted avenger at his disposal. So here canary-breasted avenger can be a painting, right? Yeah, canary-breasted avenger. Signs of wealth, symbols of wealth. So that means unwanted, lavish, unaffordable stuff. And also there's this idea of hoarding. I think we discussed about that word, hoarding. Maybe someone else. So hoarding the place, just like cluttering the place. Just filling a place with stuff? Yeah. And the sad part is Herbert, who belonged to this upper class, was not someone like that. Reverend Andasiri, any question? Oh. Okay. So if you missed any word, you may ask me. So are there any kind of unclear points up to this point, Reverends? If so, you may ask. Any word or any phrase? Okay, right. And then do you have this paragraph called now as an infallible way of making little leaves? Yeah, okay. As an infallible means, Reverends? Incapable. Yeah, incapable way of making little leaves, great teas. Again, you may highlight that phrase, making little leaves, great teas. So again, this idea of little and great, great expectations, little expectations, right? Yeah. So those are hidden, right? Just hidden like codes inside the story. Great teas and little leaves. I began to contract a quantity of debt. So this is what happens to people, kind of, who are trying to go for a lavish lifestyle even when they cannot afford it. Right? Even when they can afford it, it would be kind of a sign of superficiality in a way. But here what happens with Pippi is kind of a classic case, because what he is doing is he is not able to afford all these things, but he is trying to clutter his space with all these things, and not only his space but also he is leading Herbert to do that as well, right? Very ironically. And now he is in debt. And then I could hardly begin, but Herbert must begin too, so he soon followed, right? So now Pip is in debt, and because he is influencing Herbert, now Herbert is also starting to, take debts, and now he is in debt. At the start of suggestion, we put ourselves down for election into a club called the Finches of the Grove. Is it there, Reverends? Yeah, Finches of the Grove. So you may highlight that. Yes, Reverend? Name of the club. Yeah. And it is very ironical. So we will see what is this club. The object of which institution I have never divined, right? So that means I could not ever understand the object of this club. What is the purpose of this club? So sarcastic, right? So sarcasm as a literary device, you can see. So Dickens is using sarcasm throughout his story. Sarcasm and also in a way irony. Yeah. So where were we? Yeah. If it not that the members should dine expensively once a fortnight. So there's a habit that the members of this club should dine expensively, should have dinner, in a very expensive manner once a fortnight. Fortnight means 2 weeks. So once a 2 weeks. So here you can see that very superficial, right? Yeah, they are kind of getting together and dine expensively. It's not wrong to dine expensively, right? We also do. What I'm saying is, doing it once a fortnight. What is the idea there? Doing it just to show off, right? So they are kind of, having this club as a class marker. And Pip and Herbert are joining this to show that they are gentlemen. Maybe Herbert did not want to join. That's why Pip is feeling guilty about all this. Because he always says that I led his easy nature to expenses that he could not afford. So that's what has happened. So this is criticism about London and Great Expectations, right? Even this club is a harsh criticism.
Like folks disuse implies is in.
Yes, yes, Reverend, right? Yeah. So you can see how ironic that it is. And also, not only dining expensively, what else is happening? To quarrel among themselves as much as possible after dinner, right? So they are fighting with each other as well. Maybe after being intoxicated with alcohol, most probably, right? Yeah. And then to cause 6 waiters to get drunk on the stairs. And not only they are drinking, but also causing the waiters to be drunk as well. Right? So vain lifestyle. So usually you can say that this idea of being purposelessness, right? Being purposeless, exactly, without a purpose, living without a purpose. So living just to show off.
Like a nihilist.
Nihilist in a way, Reverend. Yeah, so meaningless. They do not have a meaning. So not exactly like they do not even understand what nihilism is, right? Yeah, doing it without being aware of that, kind of being very vain, right? Yeah, superficial. And then I know that these gratifying social ends was so invariably accomplished that Herbert and I understood nothing else to be referred to in the first standing toast of the society, which ran, is that part there, Reverence? Yeah. Gentlemen, may the present promotion of good feeling ever reign predominant among the finches of the grove. So you can say that it is like a cult almost, right? You know about these cults, right? Religious cults and like cults in kind of a negative manner. That means kind of a separate set of the society, trying to be a separate set, having this self-importance. Yeah, something like that. And also there are these clubs even here in Sri Lanka, clubs of belonging to Ananda. Where were we? About this club. Yeah, so that is the idea. And again, this first toast. So toast is like even these days in these weddings also there is this toast. That means like the welcome speech, the first speech that is done, kind of having a toast. It is like wishing everyone. Yeah, something like that. So again, this idea of lavishness, right? And then the finches spent their money foolishly. Is that part there, Reverend? Yeah. The hotel we dined at was in Covent Garden. So again, like Covent Garden, it is within brackets. It is not there. It is there. Ah, okay. So Covent Garden again, kind of a very lavish hotel. Yeah, but they cannot afford. And then the first finch. So here the idea of finch. So here you may have heard about these lion clubs. Maybe in your countries as well. In Sri Lanka, there's this idea of lion club. Yeah, there is a club called Lion. Again, the same kind of a club, right? So don't judge people if you meet a person from a lion club, but they call themselves lions, right? It is very hilarious. The Sinhala word for lion is Singha reference, right? So when they refer to someone, let's say a person called Prasanna Pereira, so he would identify himself as Singha Prasanna Pereira, which is very hilarious, right? Whenever I meet a person from a Lions Club, I am dying to hide my laugh, right? It is not nice to laugh at people, but it shows their vanity, right? To call them like lions, right? Yeah. Again, cutting off the recording. So here, what I wanted to say is, so I'm going to say it in a prominent manner so that I can include in the recording. So here you can see this idea of being a finch, right? So here you can see the first finch I saw when I had the honor of joining the Grove was Bentley Drummer. So just like these lion clubs in Sri Lanka and all these other clubs, so they call themselves finch, right? Yeah, so here among these finches, the first finch he met was Bentley Drummer. So who is Bentley Drummer? Can you remember? In the movie, he was there. Drummer, yeah. Estella, exactly, very good, Reverend, yeah. So, and again, not only dances with the one who has a relationship with her according to the movie, and the one who gets married to Estella according to the novel. Yeah, so this is where they met each other, and again, that is very symbolic, right? So, both of them are very superficial. That is the idea, the fact that they meet in this club, in this very vain club, they are meeting each other. Again, this idea of class. At that time, floundering means struggling. Yeah, struggling. About town in a cab of his own, right? Doing a great deal of damage to the posts at the street corner. So posts are like, like these sign poles, reference can be like signboards or else poles, right? Yeah, like signposts that you have different, maybe I will show you a picture. Yeah, signposts, these poles with different signs like this, reference. Yeah, signposts. Yeah, yeah, just showing the location, and also can be, different signposts, right? Okay, so what was he doing? He was struggling about town in his own vehicle, doing a great deal of damage to the posts of the street corners. What does that say about his nature, that he was damaging the signpost when he was driving vehicle? In a way, yes, he did not know. And also his carelessness. Yeah, carelessness is very prominent in his character. So you can see it. Not a very organized person. Can be drunk. Yes, Reverend, a good observation. Yeah. Because alcohol was very prominent during this time, right? People were dying of alcoholism. So you can consider this as a criticism of intoxication as well, in a way. Because he's making fun of being drunk, right? Just being drunk and, being on the stairs. And also there's this idea of making toasts and also doing these damages. Yeah, exactly. Good observation, right? Can be an indication of alcoholism as well, right? Yeah. And also, again, you can identify him as a caricature here, just like Pumblechook, if you remember this word called caricature. That means a character who is there so that the readers can derive fun, sarcasm, yeah, humor. I wrote in italics, right? Okay. So a caricature. So if you need a break, of course you can take reference, right? I mean, I don't need a break. If you don't, okay. No, I don't need. Yes? No, what is it, Reverend? Do you think that I need a break? No, no. I love to read Dickens. I was thinking that because we are anyway meeting for like 2 hours, then maybe we can continue, right? Yeah, okay. Don't worry, Reverend, right? I don't need a break. Okay, so where were we? Yes. So occasionally he shot himself out of his equipage, right? Equipage head. Equipage again refers to this idea of looking like a horse. Equipage, right? Equipage head again, kind of you can see making fun of this character, right? Yeah. Again, it shows that he is used as a form of sarcasm. Yeah. And yes, equipage head foremost over the apron. So again, yeah. So again, it shows how clumsy he is, right? So when you say that equipage head foremost over the apron means that again equipage again referring to a horse and also horse carriage. So he is shooting himself out of his horse carriage, right? That means he's just jumping out of his horse carriage. Again, it shows that how disorganized, how clumsy he is, reference, right? Yeah. And also on the other hand, this idea of equipage shows his class, to be able to own such a carriage, right? A horse carriage, and also looking like it, because it says that equipage head, right? So again animalizing is also there, right? Reference to this equipage and also attributing that quality to him. Foremost over the apron, and I saw him on one occasion deliver himself at the door of the grove in this unintentional way, like coals, right? So here again you can see how he is being very unintentional, that means purposeless, right? Again, in a way that you can cater to this idea of nihilism as well, reverence, right? So being kind of living a very meaningless life, right? Always, and even with his day-to-day actions, it is very clear that he is being very unintentional, without intentions, just wandering over the town, right? Yeah, so you can see this idea. But here I anticipate a little, for I was not a finch and could not be, according to the sacred laws of the society, until I came of age. You may highlight this part, reference. I was not a finch. But again you can say that is very ironical, because he has also put himself down for the election into this club, right? That means he has this desire to join this club, right? Yeah. So he has this desire to join this club, but he knows that he cannot join it. Even though like he wants to do it, he won't be accepted. Why? Because he is not belonging to this specific class. No matter he has received the wealth, that's true. But again, until I came of age. Can you remember this age, reverence? The coming of age? 21, very good. That's why I told you that you are given a key when you are 21. So now you are over 21. Yeah, all of you not yet. Okay, right. So you can gift him a key. So this is usually happening in Western countries, right? Yeah, because usually in Asian countries and all these other countries, we consider 18 to be kind of a mature age, but not in the modern context, right? But when it comes to this contemporary period, we are referring to 21 was identified as this age of maturity, right? Yeah. But here I anticipate a little. I was not a finch and could not be, according to the sacred laws of the society. So are these actually sacred laws, reference? No, right? He considers them to be sacred laws. Again shows Pip's vanity, right? Yeah. So this is very ironical, because usually we are made to admire a protagonist of the novel. Usually when we read a novel, right, even with Pride and Prejudice, it's like that. We were admiring Elizabeth. But here you can see we are constantly criticizing Pip. So you can see Dickens is very different than the other writers. So we can say Austen was different in her own manner. So she was not picking the lead characters based on their looks or based on their class or characteristics. She was selecting, Elizabeth and Darcy. And here you can see that Dickens is not admiring or appreciating the protagonist. He is constantly criticizing him. And here you can see that I was not a finch, and he has this desire of becoming a finch according to the sacred laws of the society. So these are like arbitrary laws, reference. I think we discussed about this idea. Arbitrary. Let me clean this. It is okay to clean the board, right? Arbitrary means imposed preference, those are not like not natural laws, but imposed laws of the society.
Madam,
Yes, Reverend.
sometimes I think when we see some people who born as a poor,
Mm.
I think it is because of the punishment.
Mm.
Sometimes if they get any chance, I think like this, like we
Climbing the social ladder.
they will corrupted by themselves. I think
Mm.
being poor is a, I think according to some people, it is a God's
Yeah.
punishment.
Yeah, karma
To teach
maybe.
him, this is where you live before.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So, do you think, Reverend, it is like that they are trying to achieve something that they did not have in their life as well? If we kind of put aside this idea of God's punishment, right? So being born poor, some people try to advance themselves and live a more luxurious life than the others, right? So I think that's what happens to people here, right? Yeah, I agree with your point. Yeah, as karma, we can say that as karma they are born like that, right? And also it is again up to a person to choose his own path, his or her own path, right? Yeah. And I've seen like most of the rich people, and even if we consider Bill Gates and all these people, they love to live in such a simple manner, right? So that's what I have seen with most of the rich people and most of the people who belong to this upper class by birth, because they have seen all these things, they do not have this desire to show off. But also there can be people who belong to the upper class, belong to kind of a very rich family and being snobbish to the core. So that's why I think this idea of Chatuskotika, I guess. So that means there can be 4 sides to everything. Like that you cannot say that there are binary opposites. So if we consider this fact, so there can be poor people who stay humble, no matter whether they receive so much of wealth, whether they climb the social ladder or not. Even if they stay poor or rich, they would stay humble. And also there can be rich people who stay humble, even though they have money. And also again there can be poor people who climb the social ladder and then become snobbish. And then there can be rich people who belong to this upper class and they have money and also they are being very snobbish, right? They are being so proud of themselves, right? Wearing all these covered in gold, right? Yeah, so I think it is like this 4-way aspect, right? Yeah, we cannot like divide people as black and white, good and bad. Just like we cannot say that all the poor people who rise to the kind of wealth would be snobbish and all the rich people who have wealth by their birth would stay humble. But most of the time, yes, most of the time what we see is when poor people kind of reach the higher class, they try to kind of achieve something that they lacked in their childhood maybe. Exactly, and everything, yeah, so that can be, Reverend. So I would just give one example for what you said. So have you heard about this book called The Count of Monte Cristo? Written by, that's fine if you haven't tried it out, you make this sweet face, right? You know that, and I'm impressed by your knowledge. Only today I got to know that you are not even 21, right? So I'm impressed by your language utilization and everything, right? So don't worry. So what I wanted to refer to is, Reverend, so there's this author called Alexander Dumas, right? So he was such a skillful writer, and then he rose to fame after he published this book called The Count of Monte Cristo. You may see there are several movies made based on this book, and also this book is very beautiful. So he rose to wealth and he received a mansion, right? Kind of a very wealthy lifestyle. And then what happened was, he was living a humble life before. And then, as you said, like God's punishment, what happened was he started to be an alcoholic, kind of an immense alcoholic. And then also started gambling with all this money, and then he stopped writing. And what happened was then he became so poor at the end of his life, right? So it was like a punishment, honestly, because you know he did not know how to use his money properly, maybe use his wealth properly. When he rose to this stage, he started spending like that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. What is that stanza, Reverend? Ah, right. Oh, right. This Parabhava Sutra? Yeah. So, yeah, again you can say alcoholism and also being a womanizer. Again, a womanizer, alcoholic, and also gambler. Right? So I think all the three happened with Alexander Duma. I don't know about this womanizing concept, but the other two happened with him. And then what happened was, yeah, obviously that would have also happened because all these things kind of, go together. Right? Yeah. When there's this one negative aspect, the others would, it would anyway come hand in hand with it. Yeah. And then until you reach a point of destruction, a person would not understand what is happening to that person, right? Yeah. So I have seen this happening with some of the writers, which is very sad because there's this misconception that, if a person, specifically a writer, does not drink alcohol or is not being intoxicated, they cannot write. So my counter argument always is that the best poet that we have in Sri Lanka is Monika Ruwanpatirana. There's no argument about that. She's like the best poetess. I'm referring to this idea of poet because I'm not kind of only referring to poetesses. From both poets and poetesses, she's like the best. So she did not even have a drop of alcohol to write. So then how, right? So then that is very sad because I know most of the writers, because I was also in publishing and all these things, and I know that most of these writers write when they are sober, when they are not alcoholic, not when they are kind of under the force of alcoholism. So that's a misconception again, right? Yeah. And that's why all these singers and all these people die due to drug addiction, and they die in a very young age, most of them, which is very sad, right? Okay, so where were we? Yeah, about Drummel, right? Yeah, and then but here I anticipate a little. Yeah, so until I came of age, this idea of sacred laws, imposed laws, and what does it tell about Pip Reverence when he refers to all these laws of the society regarding being a gentleman as sacred laws, right? Shows his vanity, right? And also this criticism of great expectations again. So this chapter would be ideal for you to talk about this idea of great expectations. And in my confidence in my own resources, is that part there, Reverence? No.
What do you mean?
Can you please read it out, Reverence? Just the first part, then I will stop you.
And one evening.
Can you show me that, Reverend? I'm not very sure whether some paragraphs are missing. One evening, that means a lot, right? It's not somewhere here. We had a letter dropped through this. Okay. So that means all this part is missing there. Okay, so maybe I will refer to this one, Reverend. Is that okay? Do you have that book now, right? This original book? Okay. Okay, so then I will refer, otherwise you cannot write it here. Okay, so I was going to refer to all this, but it is missing. Okay, let me check. So I'm wondering whether you would miss so much. Yes. Okay, no problem. You are not missing out a lot, but then I will just go through what is kind of mentioned in this chapter, if that is kind of important for you. And again you can see there's this idea, we spent as much money as we could and got as little for it as people could make up their minds to give up. So there's this idea that they were constantly going after this life. So I'm not referring to this your chapter, Reverend, right? I'm just referring to some points that I feel that you would miss out. And also there's this idea that we were constantly enjoying ourselves, and a skeleton truth that we never did. So what does that say? That people think that Pip and Herbert are enjoying life, but the skeleton truth is that we never did. So again you can see this disillusionment, right? Yeah. And then yeah, so again all these things are not very important. And also he is keeping this memorandum of Pip's debts. Maybe you remember in the movie there's this book that he keeps where he kind of includes all the debts that he has. Yeah, okay, so that is there. And again you can see this idea of lost gentleman, Reverend. Maybe you can write that down. Lost gentleman. He is a gentleman but he is lost in life. Yeah, lost gentleman. Right, okay. So that's it, and then we will read the last part. Can one of you read, Reverence? One evening we heard a letter dropped.
Going out and coming back with it, and I hope there is nothing sentimental in this book in allusion to this heavy black seal and drawing. The letter was signed, trapped, and core, and its contents were saying that I was an honored sir, and that they begged to inform me that Mrs. J.
Gajari
had departed his life on Monday, last at 20 minutes past 6 in the evening, and that my attendance was requested at the interval on Monday next at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, so who is Mrs. J. Gajari, Reverence? Mrs. K. J. Gajari? No, Mrs. Jo. That means Pip's sister. Because that it is so different from the movie, right? Yeah, because in the movie there's no kind of reference to her death, just one sentence that she passed away and Biddy came to our house, but that's not how it happens in the novel. So this specific incident is very important. If you read the novel, I hope you would be able to read the novel during the study leave maybe, because it's like a beautiful novel, and also it explains all these incidents. So what happens is connected to this idea of crime and criminality as well. So how criminality was prominent during this time. I told you, even father of Dickens was also in prison. He was also a prisoner. Maybe you can say that his shadow is there in Magwitch's character. Maybe. right? Yeah, so what I wanted to say is what happens to Joe, Mrs. Joe is, so there is this person who helps Joe at the forge, right? Yeah, so then he's not there in the movie, he's not shown. So Pip and him are working at this forge. So what happens is there's this person whose name is, let me tell you, it might be there. Yes, Reverend? Oleg. His name is Oleg. Right? It is not there in your chapter, I guess. So what happens is Oleg hits Mrs. Joe one day at the back of her head. So she is unable to see, right? But again, what happens is when this Oleg hits Mrs. Joe, she becomes unconscious almost for a while, and then she kind of, she becomes invalid literally. Right, she is not able to move. Yeah, in a way paralyzed, unable to move, but she is able to not speak, but she kind of just makes some sounds, and then she once draws this symbol of a hammer, so that symbolizes Oleg. That means she is trying to say that Oleg is the one who hit her. Yeah. Yes, Reverend? It happens because Mrs. Joe is kind of, can be very, it's like, again, the problem is it is not mentioned in the book because it is mysterious. Dickens wanted to keep all his books mysterious. At all his books, right, you find some sort of a mysterious incident like that, which is unsolved. So this is like an unsolved mystery. The reason is not given. But again, we can predict because Mrs. Joe can be very troublesome at times, right? Because she's shouting all the time, and also there's this incident that she shouts at Oleg as well. Just like she's shouting at Pip and Joe, she shouts at Oleg, but that is not a reason to kind of hit a person, right? So what happens is at a moment where Pip and also Joe are not at home, when Pip has gone to visit Miss Havisham, right? He does that. So again, it is not just hitting. It is a murderous attempt. But that fails, right? He is literally going to murder her. So that's why, a person is hit at the back of head. And then she is lying unconscious on the ground when Joe visits her, right? Joe is at some sort of a friend's house or a club or somewhere, right? So then when he comes to his house, she is lying unconscious on the ground. So then she stays invalid for about 10 or more years, right? So to attend her, Biddy comes, not after her death. So because it might be kind of, might have taken a lot of screen time to show all these, maybe that's why it is not shown in the movie, right? So Biddy comes to attend this one, Mrs. Joe. So there's this idea of criminality, and also if you remember this idea of Estella's mother, can you remember? She's not just a person from lower class, but she's also a murderer. Yeah, so can you remember the exact words that Jaggers? Wild beast tamed. Very good, Reverend. Wild beast tamed. So there you can see this idea of criminality. Again, he has this photographic memory. We are proud of him. Okay. Oh, alright. And also it is kind of a nice imagery, right? A wild beast tale. And also you can see that no matter men and women, with all men and women and all these people, you can see that criminality is attached to, right? So can be one of the major themes of Great Expectations. Yeah. Okay. So here you can see that it is kind of symbolic as well, this passing away of Mrs. Joe Gargery, right? So because he has to go to his village anyway, even though he likes it or not, his sister has passed away, so he has to go. So then you can see that there's this transition, and also when we consider the beginning of the chapter and the end, you can see in the beginning he's sad that he is not able to go there. It's not like that he's not able to go there. He has made it a point that he is trying to show that I am not able to go. but he can, right? Yeah, so just to kind of counter that argument, you can see that life is giving him a chance to go to his beginnings, right? His roots, where his roots are. So maybe that can be a very symbolic idea. That's why I selected this chapter as well, because this can be very symbolic. There's this disillusionment of being a gentleman, right? Yeah, that idea. And now it's 10 and we have only 30 minutes. So because of that, we will go to the last chapter, reference, right? If time permits, of course, we will do this chapter in the middle. The last chapter, we will complete that. Yeah. So that means we are skipping a chapter. If we have time, we will do that. Because I need to do this modernist drama with you, and also one poem which should be The Charge of the Light Brigade. Have you done it, Reverence? No, right? Charge of the Light Brigade. Oh, if you haven't, no, I was I wanted to know whether you have repeated it. Because Dr. Baruni was telling me that we are worried that whether we are repeating the same thing. She told me that you did Albatross, the poem Albatross, right? Yeah. The Ancient Mariner, and also she told me that Reverend Nandasuri was giving her the ears and all this. We were having a nice chat yesterday because we had this workshop, preaching the Dhamma, not the final competition but the training workshop. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And where were we? The last chapter, right? Okay. So here. You can see for 11 years, yeah, you have that part. I had not seen Joan or Biddy with my bodily eyes, right? Bodily eyes, what is the idea? Yeah, so it's like with my physical eyes, I haven't seen them, but they were always in my mind. That idea, right? So that's why I told you that he has this perpetual in-betweenness, always split between London and the Forge. I think that happens to people when they kind of, migrate to a different place. Or migrate, and also if just move from a city to town, or a city to village, or a village to city. I think that happened. There's this perpetual in-betweenness. Maybe you also experienced that, Reverend, because you have migrated. So half of your soul might be still there. Yeah, sometimes, right? Yeah. And Reverend Chuti was doing this presentation yesterday. So they had this research session, and I asked them to do something that they are passionate about, to select something like that. And he selected this beautiful topic about his bonsai garden. So it is done as a case study. So it is very wholesome to watch. So I just took some clips of his presentation as well, because he was expressing how he felt, very, I would say, isolated here after leaving his country, after leaving Myanmar, and then how he found his safe place here, right? His kind of, beautiful garden, how it becomes a gift to the university. Yeah, so likewise. So yeah, I remember this in-betweenness again back then as well. And also maybe if you are kind of, even you, Reverend Sister, right? Leaving your temple and even leaving your loved ones. And I think that can happen to a Reverend specifically, because you have to leave your household as well, your family, your parents, your sisters and brothers, siblings, yeah, maybe, right? So I haven't still kind of, experienced that properly, because I was living my whole life, right, at the same place. Yes, Reverend? Very lucky. Yeah, so maybe, right? I do not know. So once I applied to this kind of a faraway university, and then I was kind of having second thoughts, right? Yeah, maybe then I would have also experienced this, in-betweenness. It's not like visiting for a short place. If you have to live your whole life, maybe, so even for you, like, 4 years can be a long period, right? Yeah, likewise. So with Pip, that happens. And also the fact that Pip is having this guilty consciousness as well, because he is very guilty about leaving them. He's kind of not having all these bonds. And here for 11 years means he has not visited them after Mrs. Joe's death. Right? Yeah, that is the last time he has visited. And again, that was a chance that life gave him to visit the forge, maybe. Yeah. And yes, and also you can see this idea of maturity here, reverence. In this chapter, you meet a mature Joe. You may write it, maturity, because this is a Bildungsroman. Yeah, Bildungsroman, maturity that you can see in a Bildungsroman. And if you are asked to analyze this book Great Expectations as a Bildungsroman, right, then maybe you can see a great deal of as a child and as a young person, as a teenager, right, all these ideas, how Pip grows. So the chapters that we covered include all these ideas, right? So we saw Pip as a child, chapter 8, and then Pip as a young adult in the chapter, I think in yours 30, in chapter 30, and now we see a mature Pip, right? Yeah. Though they had both been orphaned before my fancy in the East, when upon an evening in December, an hour or two after dark, do you have it? Yeah. I laid my hand softly on the latch of the old kitchen door. I touched it so softly that I was not heard, and I looked in unseen. They are smoking his pipe in the old place by the kitchen firelight, as hale and as strong as ever, though a little grey sat Joe, and they are fenced into the corner with Jock's leg. And sitting on my own little stool looking at the fire was I again. What is the idea, reverence? It's so nice. I again. He's seen Joe. Yes? Joe, and also there's someone. So he says that I'm seeing I again. What do you think is the idea there? Yeah. So Joe is there, hale and strong as ever, and on Joe's leg, sitting on my own little stool, looking at the fire was I again. Who is this? It is not a fancy. This is reality. This is Joe's son. Yeah, Joe's and Biddy's son. So they have got married. That was shown at the end of the movie, I guess. Joe and Biddy were a couple. It was not shown. They were a couple, but the kid was missing. Yeah, so they have lost a lot of details. But again, it was good, kind of, the movie is good because you can get an idea about the summary of the book, right? Yeah. Because all these other BBC television series, don't ever watch it because they have kind of, tortured the book. I haven't watched it, but I read so many kind of, reviews, and also because I wanted to show you the best picture, so I did bit of a reading on different productions. And then many people have criticized the other versions. This was like the one which has kept the story. But again, you can see that it is also missing some details. So again, what you can see here is reverence that when he says that I laid my hand softly on the latch, I touched it so softly that I was not hard and I looked in unseen. So what is the idea here? He has learned to be humble. So maturity is there. Now he does not want to show off. He does not want to enter like this gentleman, right? And anyway, he is not this gentleman now. Because when it comes to the last chapter, all these things that we saw in the movie have happened, right? So he has lost his wealth because his benefactor was identified, right? And then his benefactor was identified as a criminal by the state, not only by himself. And then he died, right? And Estella is married now. And Estella doesn't know that, up to a certain point, Estella didn't know that she is coming from a criminal background. But at this point, she also knows. Now she does know about that. And let's see what has happened to Estella, right? Yeah, and Miss Havisham? Yes, Reverend?
Estella married with whom?
A Bentley drummer, Reverend? It is not shown in the movie. Maybe you were absent when I was telling them. So, in the movie, they say, right, the directors have portrayed it as if Estella has broken the engagement. Bentley Drummond has broken the engagement because he got to know about her criminal background and lower class background. But in the book, you can see that, yeah, she was married. And then the husband has left, just like what happened to, yeah, Miss Havisham. Jilted, literally. Right? Yeah. So you can use this word jilted. Yeah, in the kind of, when you write. Means, yeah. Okay. Right, okay. So all these things have happened when we come to the last chapter. Right? Now Pepe is nobody, literally. So you can see that he is not a gentleman now. Right? And again you can see how humble he has become. So life has humbled him. Maybe you can write it. Life has humbled him. So humble can be used as a verb there, humbled. Because he was not being humbled by himself, life has done. As Reverend Susan said, as a punishment, divine punishment. You may not write that. I was just cracking a joke. Okay, so then, yeah. Again you can see that he is revisiting him. Can you see that here when you say my own little stool looking at the fire was I again. So he is relating to that kid. So initially he would not have, right? He is this proud gentleman. So how can he call this, this kid that he looks like myself? He would not have done that earlier. But now life has humbled him. So now he can revisit his own childhood. So you may say, you may write revisiting his childhood, revisiting his roots. Again, this one can be understood as his brother in a way, right? Not exactly, not his brother, Joe, right? Even though his brother-in-law was just like a brother to him, don't you think so? Much more than his sister, he was close to him, right? Yeah. And again, what has happened in the next chapter? We give him the name of Pip for your sake. So he is named as Pip, right? Dear old chap. So again revisiting this idea. Said Joe, delighted when I took another stool by the child's side. But I did not rumple his hair. And we hoped he might grow a little bit like you. And we think he do, right? So here you can see now they are not referring to this idea of being a gentleman, being someone like Pip. Because now Pip is not a gentleman, right? Yeah. So here you can see, and also Pip is being kind of very humble here. He is taking a stool and sitting by the child's side. He would not have done 11 years ago, right? Yeah, but now he is doing it and shows his maturity and how he has grown over the years, how his character has developed. And in these Bildungsroman, this category of Bildungsromans, you can see this idea of character development throughout the class. So you can see that, right? Character development is seen. And also the most ironical part is when it comes to the end of the novel, the last chapter, he does not have great expectations. Yeah. Now he is exactly worried about his great expectations, to be honest, yeah. And I thought so too. And I took him out for a walk next day. Yeah, next morning. And we talked immensely, understanding one another to perfection. So you can see he is relating to this character. He is seeing himself, right? So this is like a chance for him to grow again. He's seen him through his eyes, right? Yeah, he seen himself through this little kid's eyes. So it's just like, that some people say that adults have this second chance to grow through their children. Maybe this is not his own kid, right? But he kind of, sees a better version of himself, that I could have been grown in a different manner, not like the snobbish person that I have become. And then, and I took him down to the churchyard and set him on a certain tombstone here. And he showed me from that elevation which stone was sacred to the memory of Philip Pirip, late of this parish, and also Georgiana, wife of the above. So who are they? Philip Pirip, the first chapter of the novel was referring to them. Pip's parents. Yeah, again you can see this idea of revisiting himself through this kid. So he's seen his own childhood, this idea of history repeating. Yeah, history repeating itself, you can see that. That means, my friend, there's this idea that once every, I would say, 100 years, so once every period, history repeats itself. So history would reappear again. Can be world wars, right? Even though no matter how much we do not like it, history can repeat itself. So when such kind of a similar thing happens, we usually use this phrase, history repeats itself, right? Yeah, something like that. So there you can see, Biddy, said I, when I talked with her after dinner, as her little girl lay sleeping in her lap. That means the little daughter. So this one is the elder son. You must give Pip to me one of these days, or lend him at all events. So that means he has this very dear bond with little Pip, right? Yeah. So he wants to adopt him. So in a way that means that I do not want to marry. Maybe that is the idea. So I'm not going to have a kid of my own. So because of that you can lend Pip to me. So I would look after him. So maybe that idea. No, said Biddy gently, you must marry. Right? Yeah. So again you can see that Biddy and Joe are like perpetual well-wishers for Pip. Right? They are always wishing the benefit of Pip. They always want to see Pip in a kind of a very good position. Maybe like happily married. Right? In his everything that he can achieve in his slay life. They want to see all these things. And again, so Herbert and Clara say, but I don't think I shall, Biddy. I have so settled down in their home that it is not at all likely. I'm already quite an old bachelor. So who is Clara now? Because we have skipped around 30 chapters. Yeah. Clara is Herbert's wife. So again you can see Herbert is happily married. Right? So I told you that people with moderate expectations won in life. In this book. So when you refer to this idea of great expectations, these are like great examples for all these things. How Joe and Biddy are happy, how Herbert and Clara are happy, right? So Herbert has this, moderate income, not kind of, very sophisticated, but he's living happily. So he says that Herbert and Clara also insist me to marry, but I'm so settled down in their home, right? So that means they are also helping Pip, right? They are not kind of looking away. And so he accepts him to be an old bachelor. So what do you think is the idea here? He is so kind of, labeling himself as an old bachelor. He doesn't want to marry. Why do you think that he doesn't want to marry? Can you just think of the reason? Heartbroken, exactly. Just like Miss Havisham reference, right? He is also heartbroken because he loves Estella. Because once he says that Estella is like a kind of a part of my own soul, part of my existence. I'm unable to live without her. So it's good that he didn't get married. So some people, right, even when they are kind of heartbroken by someone else, just get married for the sake of the world. And then, make the life hell of this person who's getting married to that person, whether it is a man or a woman. So Pip is being kind of a good gentleman there, even though he is not a gentleman according to the societal standards now. He's been a gentleman because of his character. He could have get married to some random girl, but he's not going to do that. That would be an injustice for that girl as well, right? Yeah, if he is always thinking about Estella and getting married to someone else, yeah, he's not doing that, you can see. And then Beauty looked down at her child and put its little hand to her lips, and then put the good matronly hand with which she had touched it into mine. And again you can see that matronly hand means she was able to kind of look after everyone like a matron of a place, right, of a household or somewhere. Yeah, with which she had touched it into mine. And again you can see this idea that Biddy is like a mother to Pip as well, like this motherly figure, proxy mother figure. There was something in the action, in the light pressure of Biddy's wedding ring, that had a very pretty eloquence in it. So here you can see that even though he wants to die an old bachelor, inherently, symbolically, you can see that he kind of the light pressure of Biddy's wedding ring. Again he sees light pressure. There is a pressure in married life as he understands, but he feels this kind of lightness as well. He is kind of drawn to it in a way. He is attracted by that, to this idea of marriage, right? It is not like that he despises marriage. So there are some people, they do not want to get married because they dislike marriage. But in Pip's case, because he is heartbroken, as Reverend Anderson said, right? Not because he does not want to get married. He loves this idea of marriage, but if it is not with Estella, no other women, right? Yeah. And then, dear Pip, said Biddy, you are sure that you don't fret for her? So Biddy has read Pip's character. Is that part there? Yeah, okay. So now Biddy is asking, are you sure that you are not after her? Right? Yeah. And then, oh no, I think not, Biddy. Tell me as an old friend, have you quite forgotten her? So Pip is kind of, having these easy discussions with Biddy. He can be open to Biddy, right? Biddy is a proxy mother figure, a good friend, a good listener, a very positive character. Maybe the most positive character you would find in the whole novel, right? Yeah, no matter how simple, how humble she is a very positive character. And then here you can see Pip's honest expression about Estella. My dear Bitty, I have forgotten nothing in my life that ever had a foremost place there, and little that ever had any place there. But that poor dream, as I once used to call it, has all gone by, Bitty, all gone by. So he's been very honest there, right? It is not like that he despises marriage, right? It is not like that he doesn't want to get married, but because it is not for Estella's sake, right? Because Estella is not there. And also, even when it comes to Estella, right? Even when it comes to his fancy about Estella, now do you think it is as strong as it was when he was a young man? No, now he is mature, right? Now he doesn't feel the same way about him. And that can happen, right, with the maturing years. So there are couples who stay kind of as loud even when they are 80 or 90. But with most of the people this happens, right? Yeah. So here you can see that even though they are not married, and specifically because as a sign of maturity, maybe because life kind of it can happen with the birth of children with married couples, because there are so many responsibilities, right? They have to look after so many children and also look after so many kind of look into several responsibilities. But that has not happened with Pip and Estella. But this happens with maturity, you can see. Now Pip has realized, or he has actualized, Estella is someone unreachable, just like this star that her name symbolizes. And now he knows that we are belonging to two classes. No matter, right, whether Estella belongs to this criminal background, she was raised like a lady, right? Yeah. So again you can see that this idea, the passion, the spark has gone now. That passionate spark he had for Estella, it is not there anymore. Maybe just kind of, that you can see that they are united at the end of the book. True, if you have read the book and even in the movie you saw it. But again, you cannot say that it is a passionate relationship. Maybe just a friendship. Can be. Right? Even with these words, it is very clear. So he was in need of getting married to Estella. But then again, now it is gone. Right. Okay. It is almost 10:30. So then we will stop here, reference, right? And then we can do it not next Monday, because Monday is a holiday. Maybe next Friday, and you are having your assessment on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday you will do the assessment. And then after that, because I don't think I would be able to do a lesson on Wednesday because I would be so busy because of preaching the Dhamma program, which is scheduled to be held on Thursday. Yeah. You're doing the comparing, Reverend, right? No. Yeah, announcing. Yeah. So Dr. Varuni and I were discussing about this. So we need to meet you as well. Okay. We will discuss. Is Reverend Vichakana aware about this, Reverend? Yeah, right. I met him yesterday, but I couldn't tell him because they were presenting. He knows, right? Right. Okay. Right, okay. So Dr. Varuni has sent me a message. I didn't see it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so we will discuss about the themes and all these things next Friday, and we will complete this chapter. Friday, hopefully. And then Friday I'm going to, maybe if time permits, I will start the modernist drama. Yeah, if not, the poem Charge of the Light Brigade. Yes. So then we have covered something from all the periods. Yeah. So we started with romantic. And then we did Victorian novels. But we need to do at least one Victorian poem, and then also we will do this modernist drama. Then we have covered modern period as well. Then you can happily study. Because there were only 13 weeks. Yeah, that was the issue. Okay, reference. You can keep the book reference. This one you can keep. Yeah, you visit it though. Yeah, exactly. Otherwise you tend to forget. You can maybe read the book's reference, but it is good that you have a good study leave. As in, at least you can study. Because at other universities it is not like that. They just have, this 2 weeks, but you receive so many holidays for New Year and for Vesak, for Katina, everything you have, right? Okay, right.